Hi everyone! Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Ann Crawford. I'm the Reference and Adult Services Librarian at the Ponte Vedra Beach Branch Library, and I'm here recording from home to share 8 easy tips to staying safe online. Although this presentation is geared towards adults, I think kids and teens both find something valuable in this presentation. And right now, adults are having lots of interaction with their kids and teenagers, either through video chats to stay in touch, or digital school, or just the increased digital presence we're all feeling right now. So that makes this presentation more timely than ever. So like I said, I'm going to go over 8 simple tips that you can start using right now to be more safe online, which means to protect your privacy and to also protect you from scams and fraud. So let's go ahead and dive on in. All right, so safety tip number 1. Lock your devices, tablets, and phones. So just about all of us now have either a smartphone or a tablet, maybe a combination of the two. Perhaps your kids or grandkids have tablets and phones. And so this is a really simple tip to incorporate into your life right now during this presentation if you wanted to. If you have an iPhone or an iPad or an Android tablet or an Android phone, simply go to settings and there should be an option to lock your device. And that's where you're going to choose a 4-digit number, maybe a 6-digit number, or some sort of shape that you draw, or maybe even your fingerprint in order to secure your device. And that's so important because as a parent myself, and with my daughter who has 5 wonderful grandparents who all love to take pictures of her, our devices have a lot of photos of her on them. They have phone numbers and they have all sorts of other personal information that we wouldn't share with just anybody. So locking your device is so important. Also, if you've ever lost a phone or a tablet before, I know there's probably many of us out there who have, by locking your device, you're not immediately allowing somebody else to access all of your personal and private information. So it's a really simple and easy thing to do. I really recommend it because, again, we keep so much of our personal life on our devices, and we're not going to choose to share that with everyone. So this is one way to make sure that your personal information stays safeguarded, which leads me into my next tip. So, safety tip number 2, think before you act. When in doubt, call. Now, the first part of this tip could be applied to anything, be it on the internet or just in real life. Always think before you act. Generally, unless a building is burning down, nothing requires immediate action. In fact, that's oftentimes the way that scammers will try and trip you up. They'll send you an email, or they'll even call you, and they sound really legitimate, and the email sounds really legitimate, and there's always some sense of urgency behind it. There's going to be fraud on your account, or something is going to expire, or they need your personal information for some reason to make sure that everything is secure. It sounds all very immediate, and you just need to give out all this information, or you need to click a link. Don't do it. Stop, think, take a breath. That's oftentimes how scammers get your information. So if you get an email that you've never really gotten before from the bank or your insurance company, or you get a phone call and somebody sounds really urgent to get all this personal information for you over the phone, and there's really no way to check to see if that person is legitimate, don't answer that email. Don't click on that link. Don't continue that phone call. Instead, call the agency that's supposedly contacting you, your bank, your insurance company, etc., and ask them, is it legit? You'll find out 2 really important things. First, you'll find out whether or not the request is legitimate or not. If it is, then that agency is going to want to help you resolve the issue, and you'll know for sure that you're talking to the right person because you called them. Secondly, if it's not legit, you've just saved yourself a lot of time not having to worry about straightening out your bank account or canceling all of your credit cards or anything like that. Also, while you're on that phone call, I really recommend that you ask them, how do they notify their customers about fraud or security issues or things like that? They're going to tell you that there's a certain way that they do things to make sure that you're not caught unaware or tripped up by scammers. So you'll learn a lot just in that one phone call. So I really urge you to trust your instincts and not click on that link right away and not start suddenly giving out all of your personal information, because you can always go straight to the source and find out what is really needed, if anything's needed at all. So, tip number 3. When in doubt, throw it out. Now, I happen to love this tip, but it has nothing to do with Marie Kondo. Marie Kondo believes that if it doesn't give you joy, you need to toss it. That's not what this is about. What this is about is when you get those really strange emails that have a lot of misspellings, or they come from a strange address, or they're telling you, you want $1 million, now all you have to do is give us all this personal information, or things like that. If it sounds too good to be true, generally, unfortunately, it probably is. So trust your instincts and toss it out. If it's truly an important email, you can do one of two things. Again, you can call the agency and see if it's legit, or if you don't recognize the agency, you can toss it out. If it really means you want $1,000, $1 million, I should say, I'm sure they'll contact you again. But when in doubt, throw it out. Because again, that's such an easy way for scammers to get your information. And sometimes when you click on a link, you end up getting a virus on your device or your tablet, or spyware, or any other kinds of things that you definitely don't want on any of your technology. So be careful of any links that are in any emails, even if they're from someone you know and love and recognize. Sometimes if they've got a virus on their end, that virus will start sending out emails from their address. So if anything looks remotely fishy, toss it out. Toss it out. All right, so safety tip number 4, make passwords strong. So this is one that I have fallen into the ditch over, because it's so tempting to make your password something easy to remember, because who hates it when you try to sign into your email account and you can't do it because you can't remember your password? I think it's happened to most of us at one time or another. So the temptation is to pick a password that's easy to remember, that you're not going to have to think really hard about, or anything like that. And unfortunately, those are the passwords scammers love, because they're so easy to hack. They're so easy to get into your email account, your banking account, and all those other things that you don't want hackers to be inside of. This actually happened to me many, many years ago, when I was much younger, but I had chosen too easy a password for my Amazon account. My Amazon account got hacked, and then I had to spend several days straightening that out between Amazon and my bank, and it was time that I did not enjoy spending. Fortunately, I was able to catch it before it became a really, really big deal. But I learned my lesson from then on to always make sure you're choosing unique passwords. Oftentimes, a really strong password could be a password that's 12 characters long. It could have exclamation points or question marks. It could have capital letters in odd places, different kinds of number combinations. Usually the more creative you get, the better off you are. But you might be thinking to yourself, but that goes against my rule, because I'm going to choose something really creative, and then I'm going to want to log into my email or my banking account, and I'm never going to remember that password. What do I do next? Well, that's tip number 5. So, safety tip number 5, write it down and keep it safe. So this is important. So you've just created these really unique passwords for all these different websites that you're on. And you may think to yourself, I don't use the internet that much to log into things. And really, you do. With your email, with your bank, if you're paying bills online. And right now, especially, we're having to do so much more online because of social distancing and because of businesses being closed. So those strong passwords are really important. But how are you going to remember them? So what I recommend is write it down and put it in a safe place. That could be in a lockbox in your house. It could be on a like an Excel spreadsheet, and you password protect it, so only you knows the password. Now, in that case, try not to make the password too complex, and to save it that way. There's also software that will allow you to save information that way and then open it back up. Just make sure that you don't write it down on a piece of paper and stick it in your wallet or your purse that could easily slip out onto the floor and then someone else could find it, because that's a whole nother presentation that I could get into. But the important thing is make sure you write it down and you keep it in a safe place. And in that way you can choose strong passwords, and then you can always go back and reference those passwords when you need them if you can't remember them for a specific website, especially if it's one you don't use all that often. All right, so safety tip number 6. What you post will last forever. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm a reference and adult services librarian as of January 2020. Prior to that, since 2003, I was a youth services librarian working with kids and teens, and this was a big one for internet safety. What you post will last forever. It's all part of your digital footprint, and your digital footprint doesn't go away. And when you're a teenager, we say, hey, that photo you posted, or that thing that you said that you thought was really funny and your friends were going to get a real kick out of it, is that the same thing you'd want your employer to see? That still applies as an adult. You don't want to put anything out there on the internet that you don't want someone else looking at some future point, be it an employer or be it somebody else who's very important to you. The general rule of thumb that we tell the kids and teens, which also applies to adults, if you wouldn't want your mother seeing it or reading it, don't put it out there. Don't post it. Because even if you delete it, delete the post, delete the picture, it still stays out there on the internet. It's still archived out there somewhere. So really think about what you're going to post, because it will last forever. And I especially want to mention to all the adults who may be watching this presentation, remember, if you're using a Facebook account or a Twitter account, oftentimes in these digitized times, what do we like to do on Facebook and Twitter if we've got kids or grandkids? We like to share about them. We like to share their pictures. We like to share what they're doing. We like to share who their friends are. We like to share their dance recitals and their soccer practices, and that's all wonderful. But you've just got to remember, you're not only creating a digital footprint for yourself, you're creating a digital footprint for your child or your grandchild as well. So be really thoughtful about what you post, because that's their digital footprint that will then follow them down the line as they get older and apply for jobs and things like that. So that's safety tip number 6. 2 more to go. Safety tip number 7, keep it kind online and offline. I can't express this enough, especially with everybody being so stressed right now, but just in general, keep it kind, especially keeping it kind online. Now, I do think it's very important to keep it kind offline as well, because kindness matters, and kindness is the kind of world that I want to live in and raise my child in. But the reason I really emphasize keeping it kind online is because of a term that you may have heard called keyboard warriors. Keyboard warriors are people who sit behind their screen and they type all sorts of nasty things because they never have to look someone in the eye and say it. They don't have to see the damage that it does, and they don't have to be brave enough to say it to somebody's face. Unfortunately, keyboard warriors do tend to say some really nasty things online because they're cowardly. They wouldn't say it to somebody's face, but it's really easy to type on a screen and post and send out into the ether. And this applies to adults as well. There's a lot of hot button topics out there. Politics is one of them, and there's many others that are out there as well. And so keeping it kind is really, really important, because you don't know the impact you may be having on someone else. Just as kindness makes a big difference, so does cruelty. So be a model for your child, for your grandchild, for other people, for how you'd want to be treated, and make sure you're keeping it kind. If it's not something that you'd say to someone's face, and or it's not kind, not something you'd want your mother to read, don't put it out there. It's a really important thing, and I really hope that all of us exercise that a little bit more. So our last safety tip number 8, own your online presence. So here's what this means. When you start a Facebook account, when you start a Twitter account, when you start any kind of social media, you're taking on a responsibility. You're taking on a responsibility of how much of your personal information you want shared. And if you're a parent or a grandparent who loves to share pictures and experiences and moments, that's a wonderful thing, especially right now when we can't see our loved ones the way we'd like to, can't see our friends, can't give those hugs that maybe we really enjoy giving. We're relying on that digital presence that much more to share about our lives and feel connected to other people. That's a natural and human thing. What I mean by own your online presence is to make sure that when you start a social media account, look at your privacy settings. Don't leave it wide open for everybody to see. The digital world is a tricky thing. As a Gen Xer myself, I had an analog childhood and a digital adulthood, which means I didn't grow up with the internet, which makes me sound like a dinosaur, but there it is. But what that also means is that I'm still getting the hang of how much everything can be shared out there. And when you leave your account, a social media account, wide open for everybody to see, it's basically like handing your phone to a complete stranger in a store and letting them see all your pictures and all your personal information and know all about your family and where you live. You wouldn't do that. But by having a wide open account on the internet, or thousands and thousands of friends for whom you make public posts, you're putting your whole life out there. And there's two problems there that can come up. The first is that you may think, well, the only people who are really looking are the people who are friends on my account. Not so. They have friends as well, and they have friends, and they have friends. You're only a few clicks away from people who are complete strangers to you seeing all of your personal information. If you're posting on there, hey, I'm going on this awesome European vacation. I'll be gone for 3 weeks. No one's going to be at my house. I can't wait to go. I'm going on June 4th. Then that means that people out there who are looking to burglarize homes know that on June 4th, your home will be open for 3 weeks, and it's perfectly okay to come and try and break in. So it's that sort of thing you really want to be careful of. More so than just having a conversation with someone, you're having a conversation with the world at that point. You wouldn't put out a newspaper article claiming that you're going out of town for 3 weeks or super personal information about your child or your grandchild, but putting it out on a public social media account is essentially doing the same thing. So please set those settings to private. It's really, really important. Another problem with having a public account is this. If you leave your account public and you post a lot of pictures on there and all sorts of memories and things like that, anybody and everybody can go on your account and take whatever they want. They can take those pictures of your grandchild or your children and they can post them out all over the internet. They can do any number of awful things with your photos and your personal information. So now we're not just talking about scammers or fraud, we're also talking about predators, which we talk to about with children and teens all the time. Don't give out your personal information online. Don't meet up with strangers. Don't share your pictures because then they can be shared with anybody. The same is true as if you are an adult and you're sharing about your children and your grandchildren. So it's really important for you to own your online presence and decide for yourself how much you want to share and how it's going to get shared. And really that can only come from you. Only you can decide what you post. Only you can decide what your settings are going to be so that your information isn't everywhere for all to see. So all of these tips came from stopthinkconnect.org, which I love the name of the website right off the bat because I think it really sums up what I've been talking about in this presentation, which is stop, think about what you're putting out there on the internet, and then safely connect with loved ones and friends and future employers. Absolutely. So if you go to this website, you can read about all 8 of these tips in greater depth and remind yourself of these tips and start implementing them in your everyday life. And more so than that, reach out to your librarians with Ask a Librarian. As you know, unfortunately, our libraries are closed at the moment. So normally I would tell you, go visit your public library or give your public library a call, and we'll be happy to help you work through these steps with making yourself more secure online. You can even bring your device to our desk and we'd be happy to assist you with getting started with Facebook or showing you how you can then set a code to lock your device. Unfortunately, right now, since that's not possible, if you go to askalibrarian.org, and Ask a Librarian is all one word, .org, you can ask librarians all over the state of Florida any questions that you like, Monday through Sunday. In fact, if you ask your question between 9 and 5 on Friday, you might even get me to answer your question because that's the time that I do my shift. We have different librarians in St. Johns County Library System who cover the Ask a Librarian desk. It's a virtual reference desk, if you will, and librarians from all over the state of Florida, all there ready to help you, which is what librarians love to do. We love to get you accurate information, we love to help you, and we want you to be safe anytime that you use the internet to connect. So again, reach out to us, ask any questions that you want to in the comments. Please give us ideas of future presentations that we can offer to you. Share this with whomever you think might benefit from some easy, safe online tips, be them kids, teens, adults. And thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Be safe and be well. Bye.